We are back. This is the hottest show out, the conversation with Clark and Michelle. Then our next guest is a speaker, author, financial educator, and the CEO of Jones Marketing Group. Put your hands together for Mr. Paul D. Jones in the house. Mr. Paul, how are you, sir? Welcome to the hottest show out.
I am fabulous, and I'm happy to be on the hottest show out.
Well, you know what? Now we can get a little bit smarter, hopefully, with our financial acumen as we talk shop to you. Let's jump right in. Let's talk about your background and what made you even take notice that there is a need for financial literacy. Usually, that happens when we screw over money. So, what's your story? What made you say, you know what? I got to learn this stuff.
Well, you know, it's a combination of what you said, messing up some money, but even going back further to the point of having no money. You know, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. So my mother loved me, grew up in a loving, caring home, single mom. She took great care of me and my sisters. None of us will complain about that. But it wasn't until I left my house and went to college is all of a sudden you start seeing people with money, or you start being around people with money. How about this? We always saw people with money, but now you're around people with money, but money in the terms of wealth. You know, and so a lot of times people blindly try to go for this wealth, but they don't understand the literacy part of it. So it's like a person trying to speak good English, you know, because they see people speaking good English, but then when they get into that conversation, the English doesn't sound right, so they use the wrong word. Like I was having a conversation with a guy, and he was trying to say he stays optimistic, but he said pessimistic. So you're like, oh, you're illiterate in your words. So it's the same thing with finances. We try to act like we know something that we just don't understand, and what you don't understand hurts us. So we have to get into a good understanding. So for me, I tried to buy a home. I went to school, got educated, and I was getting declined. You know, my credit score was bad. I didn't know why, because I was a college graduate. And therefore, I had to start. I became basically an information geek. I geeked out on money matter. You know, I was like, you know what, once you beat me, I'm going to find out how I was getting beat. And I refused to get bitter. And I think a lot of times people fall short because they become bitter instead of getting an understanding of how you may have fallen into a certain situation. And knowing that, okay, if we go back in history, people of color, you know, yeah, we were handed a certain life and said, okay, now go make do. However, now as we can educate ourselves and we got the internet, we got the power of information, we just have to go get the information. But now it's about having a desire to get it.
You know, I want to talk about, this is a very easy changeover. You talk a lot about changing the curse or the generational curse of financial literacy.
Yes,
I'd love to hear, first, explain to our audience what that means to you, and how are we going to really get to do this? Because we hear people say it, and it's great to say it, and it sounds good for us to say, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. But how are we really going to take the steps to do this? Because if we don't do it in this next generation, we're going to be a lost generation.
Absolutely, I'm in total agreement with you on that. Number one, how to understand what a poverty curse is. First, you have to understand what poverty is. Poverty is when you are held down. It's like $14,000 a year or less, and that's what you're living off of. You are in poverty. You know, what I notice is sometimes people defend the right to stay in that era. So to get off that, you know, number one, look at it this way. When you go to a doctor, if you're sick and you go to a doctor today, they will have you fill out a form. And in that form asks about your history. So they want to know, did your mother have a heart problem? Or did your father have a history of stroke? Did anyone in your family, mother or father's side, have this or have high blood pressure? What they are doing is they're diagnosing the symptoms to try to come with a conclusion to what may be your problem, or to say, hey, probably in the future, this is what's going to happen to you. So they do it in order to get preventive maintenance actions in place. So when we look and say, well, whenever someone talks about money, do you clam up? Does that almost offend you? When you see someone have something nice, does that bother you? You know, because usually that's a poverty mindset then. And that becomes a curse. And understand, a curse is something that destroys the potential. So I want to have, if I see you have something nice, I'm going to celebrate you having something nice. I'm not going to, you know, hate on you for having something nice. You know, it's a scripture I go off of, Proverbs 24:7. It says, prepare your work outside. Get everything ready for yourself in the field. And after that, build your house. Now, that means if you don't even have plans to build a house, a poverty curse will tell you, you don't need a house. Well, you know, we made it this far. You don't need all that. You know, to make it, you don't need all of that. But what it's really doing is it's telling people not to sit down and pre-plan and write out the lifestyle that they would like to have. And when they get caught up in that, then it's nothing but a curse, and that perpetuates generationally. So in my book, I Quit Being Broke, that's the first chapter that I attack, is on poverty, because the first chapter is on recognizing the poverty mindset. Because in order to quit being broke, you have to change your mindset. And we have to do it where people don't feel offended. You know, that's why I tell people, hey, I didn't have a silver spoon growing up. So I'm speaking from experience. I didn't like being broke. Matter of fact, I couldn't stand it. It was something that I didn't like. It was almost an addiction, because I kept making the same decisions that would cause me to stay into the same predicament in my life. So once I realized that I was addicted to being broke and addicted to making broke decisions, I quit. I said, I'm no longer going to think that way. It's destroying my family. And it's a curse. But then I set myself free, and I got the right information. And as I said before, then I geeked out on the right information, and I took action.
Well, let's talk about that as you drew the analogy with going to the doctor. And when the doctor says, you know, did your mother have this? Did your dad have this? Talk about the value a little more, although I believe you talked about it and gave it just attention of the necessity of honest self-assessment, because not only they're going to ask about your mama, because if your mama had high blood pressure, that's one thing, but let's also talk about what you are doing in your life to trigger that. And do you think that we are transparent enough to do those levels of self-assessment?
Well, here's the thing. Most people don't know they're making wrong decisions. And that's where all of us come together as mentors, and we start teaching. When you said something that was very important, and it triggered a chapter in my book, Who Told You You Were Broke? It talks about, there's a chapter on it, it's called The Peace of Integrity. And it's basically you being honest with yourself so that you can change that self. You know, when you give yourself a real self-checkup and you look at yourself, now what's going on in the peace of integrity is people can count on you. When you say, you know what, I'm going to show up to work to your employer, that employer can count on you showing up to work. When you say, I want my life to be better, well then when you say it, because people know you as a person of integrity, then they'll look at you and say, you know what, he's serious or she's serious. And that's what we do, is we do have to assess really where we are. You know, we can't let the credit card lie for us. We can't let debt destroy us, because a lot of times what happens is we do want to look a certain way. We want to be out in the public, and we want the public's view of us to be a certain way. So therefore, that's where debt comes from. And because we feel like we can't go out. So in other words, we don't avoid emotional buying habits. We actually fall into emotional buying habits because we want to show, hey, you got your hair done the right way. You got the purse the right way. Guys got the cars looking the right way. We put the rims on them. We got the sound system. However, we have a lot of money spent, but I always break this down when I'm teaching in conferences and seminars, the word, because everything I just spoke about is people getting liabilities. But if you understand the word ability, when you have the ability to do something, then that means you can grow forward. You have the ability to do it. But if you lie about your abilities, then that's just like lying on a resume. Eventually, when you get found out, they're going to fire you if you get hired at that job. Well, when you take the word lie and you put it with the word ability, you have liability. So I try to get people to look at things in a real practical manner, to say, you know what, I am not going to sit here and lie to people about my ability. I'm going to put a plan in place so that way I can build my assets so that I can continue to grow and build a true empire. And when you look at it and you say, well, wait a minute, if I spent $300 to $500 on a nice outfit, getting my hair done, and you say, you know what, what's wrong with the outfit you had the weekend before? Some people didn't see you in that. Move it around, change the top, change the bottom, move it around a little bit. But take that money and now put it in a growth fund, a tax-deferred growth fund. So now your money's growing for you in a tax-deferred growth fund account, and you take the whole sum, the gross of money, understand this, and you earn money and interest off your gross when most people are living off the net. The net is what's left. You're taxed off your gross. So if I'm working a day job and I want to start building a nest egg of investments, then I'm going to choose tax deferred. What that means is the same way the government takes money out of your check before you even get the check, then you take money out of your check before you get the check also, and you put it in a growth fund account that's tax deferred. So now when your interest starts building, that grows on the full sum versus the smaller sum or the smaller principal.
Wow. Mr. Paul Jones, thank you so much. You've dropped a wealth of information that we need to hear, not only once, but again and again, so we can change our mind, change our habits, and transform our finances. Why don't you let everyone know how they can get in touch with you?
Well, anyone can get in touch with me at any time. Just go to pauldjones.com, pauldjones.com, and then click any of the social links, and or if they want to email, just go to mail@pauldjones.com. And my goal is to help people, get into business for themselves and understand how they can grow themselves to have tomorrow be better than yesterday.
Excellent. Hey, I know I've got to give some love to Miss Belinda James and, of course, the Double Exposure out there. Up there, I should say, in the north. Big shouts out to them for having you on the show.
Hey, I appreciate you guys, and thank you to them as well.
Absolutely. That is financial expert guru, Mr. Paul D. Jones.